Hey guys, today we're taking a look at the ban list for April 2014. I wanted to do this video, when it came out yesterday, but I've been building my new computer that I just finished up, so I really didn't have a chance to do that. And hoping to get a chance to discuss it in a bit, give my impressions. From my perspective, just so you know going in, I'm more of a casual player. I'm not as invested in the meta as most people are. I look at it more from like a deck building perspective and how it affects, all different kinds of decks. So my opinions will probably differ from a lot of people, but hopefully, in the comments you guys will let me know your thoughts as well. So what I'm going to do is just go over what's happening in the ban list and then go over each individual card and then give my just initial impressions and maybe talk about it a little bit depending on the card. So first off, this ban list in particular is not doing that much. There's not that much going on with it. Just a few, big things, but overall it's not a huge thing. The only cards getting banned are the Morphing Jars. Morphing Jar 1, Morphing Jar number 2. Wolf Bark is getting limited, Baskundi is getting limited, Rekindling is getting limited, Infernity Barrier is getting limited. And then we have Necroface and Heretic Seal of Convocation are becoming semi-limited, and Magical Stone and Primal Seed are going off the ban list. So first off, as I said, not that much going on in this ban list. There's a few things, but overall, not that many cards compared to a lot of the other previous ban lists. So first off, Morphing Jar number 1, or Morphing Jar, the thing about this card is that it really gives some decks way too much draw power, and it kind of wrecks the entire kind of situation on the field. I really don't like this card being out there. Obviously it helps some decks, if you have like a burn deck, something like that where you want to dump all your resources and gain more cards, it's very useful. But in like normal play, I don't really like it being out there just because it kind of really destroys what's going on. Can be a very annoying card to deal with. So I'm not a big, I don't really have too many issues with it being banned. And, the only few decks that use it are kind of the cheap, annoying decks, so not a big deal. Morphing Jar number 2, this one might seem kind of out of left field. Morphing Jar number 2, I think the deal with him is having some kind of loop. I know I've seen a loop with him in like Magician of Faith, so with Magician of Faith coming back, that might be somewhat of an issue. This card's always been really annoying. I really don't like it also, kind of doing the other, not the same thing as Morphing Jar number 1, but just like a really annoying fact that messes with everything on the field, which cards like that shouldn't exist, and that's why they, ban cards like Cyber Jar and stuff like that. And then Cold Solar Wolf Bark. So I definitely understand why this guy's getting limited. Some decks really want to be able to abuse his effect to get out XYZs very quickly. A little bit strong, definitely, this card. I know some decks won't worry too much about this because they're not going to be running 3 of it anyway. Usually they're going to be running 1 or 2. So I don't think it's a big deal, but I think it's definitely a good change so decks won't be abusing this in particular. Those Beast Warrior decks are strong enough right now, so I don't think that's necessary. For Baskundi, I like that they're addressing Mermails. Mermails are definitely a bit ridiculous, but again, this change is not going to really destroy Mermails at all. It's going to be fine. Mermails can get away with running, 1 or 2 of these guys. Some Mermails only run 1 or 2 of Gundi, so I don't think it's going to be a big deal, and I do like that they're addressing our Mermails. Now, the thing that I'm most upset about with this ban list is Rekindling. So the problem with Rekindling and the problem with Konami in general is that what they do is they take a card that is becoming really unfair with a certain deck type, and what they do is, limit it, and they don't really care about what happens to every other deck type that might use the card. They only address, the meta, what's going on. So this change is probably, aimed at Lavalos. Lavalos with 3 Rekindling can be way too strong. The combinations that they can do are really ridiculous. So I can get that, but there are a lot of decks that can benefit from Rekindling, and I'm really, from a deck building perspective, I'm really upset. Flame Bells will get hurt really badly. To a lesser extent, Fire Kings, but Fire Kings are not a big deal because they're, very good on their own. You can run Rekindling with Jirax and Volcanic and a bunch of other archetypes you can mess with Rekindlings in, and I'm pretty upset about that. I'm fine with what it's going to do to Lavos, but again, it's going to just hurt all those other decks that aren't necessarily high tier anyways, so very, very annoying in my opinion, and hope they maybe, I don't know if they're going to be able to do something about that, but they're going to have to find some way of dealing with it. Rekindling is a staple card with fire decks. That's just how it is. Limiting it is going to really shut down a lot of fire decks. I'm not a fan of that at all. Infernity Barrier getting limited, I definitely don't agree with this. I think when you have a deck like Infernity that spends so much to get the resources out there, you should have the backup of cards like this. Obviously, you can run other cards like Trap Stun and stuff like that, but I definitely don't like this change. I think Infernities could definitely use that backup from traps. You know, even though it's a powerful card, having to dump all your cards in your hand just to be able to use cards like this, I think is a decent, you know, thing. Because if you lose your field presence, then there's a lot of field nuking nowadays. If you lose your field presence, you're screwed. You don't have any cards in your hand. So definitely don't agree with this change. Not as bad as Rekindling, but definitely I don't like that at all. But let me know your opinions. So for the cards going semi-limited, Necroface, that's definitely fine. I know some decks can use this and do some really interesting things with banishing. So I definitely love to see that and see what those decks can do in the future. I really just want to see what it can do. And it being limited, I don't think is really, it hasn't really been necessary at all, just because it has this really interesting effect. I think it should definitely get played more with the decks that will benefit from it. Heretic Seal of Convocation, I can definitely agree with that. Being semi-limited, that's definitely fine, because Heretics do a lot of, you know, searching and summoning on their own. Being able to search out whatever you need for Heretics is a bit much, so I definitely think semi-limiting that could be a good idea. Not shutting down their searching at all, just giving them a little less searching, and obviously you could still do a lot of other things to get out what you need. Magical Stone Excavation, I think this is kind of a response to Rekindling and the fact that, you know, people don't want to use this card as much. Magical Stone Excavation is an interesting change, so certain decks will be able to benefit more from Rekindling, like Flame Bells and the other ones that I talked about. So I definitely like this change, especially with Rekindling, giving us some backup. Still definitely a big cost for decks to use that, so still don't agree with the Rekindling change, but at least they have this to come with it. And then Primal Seed is the last one that's going off the list. I definitely agree with this. There's no reason this card should be limited, because you can only have one Blackluster Soldier and CD isn't in the game right now, so I think this is fine. If you're going to run more than one Primal Seed, you know, that's rough, because you have to get out Blackluster Soldier and you have to, you know, be able to protect him to keep using more copies of it. So I definitely think that's interesting. If you run a Chaos or Banish type deck, you can definitely run this card and do some really interesting things. So definitely a big fan of that. Don't think it's going to change too much, so I can understand why they did it, just to give those decks a bit of backup. Would be definitely more interesting if there were more Chaos cards that could utilize this, but that's fine anyways. So that's my thoughts on the new ban lists. Not too much I disagree with, just Rekindling and Infernity Barrier. Yeah, it's not a really important ban list, honestly. Not too many things are going to change. A lot of people probably wanted Fire Fist to get hit. I personally wanted to see Tenki go to 2. I thought Mermails would get hit harder. I thought they might hit Bujins, even though it's probably not necessary. But this turns out what they did, so I don't think too many things are going to change. We're probably just going to see less of those fire decks and less Infernities. But overall, definitely interesting. So if you guys have any thoughts on this current ban list, definitely post below. Let me know in the comments. All my decks will be updated for the new ban list, and I will start doing that right away. Because I've been late, I'm going to do a Q&A tomorrow. So, you know, if you guys do have questions, you can post on my Q&A video, and I'll respond to them maybe about the ban list. But, you know, as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.